Who doesn't love time travel? And we all know Back to the Future, Avengers Endgame, Hot Tub Time Machine, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. But why don't more people talk about Primer? I have a ton of friends who are massive movie nerds, and hardly any of them have seen it. I watched this movie for the first time a few weeks ago and had to watch it again immediately because this is one of the most unique and interesting and confusing and thought-provoking movies I have ever seen, and I just can't get it out of my head. In fact, I'm still not even 100% sure how I feel about this movie, which is incredibly rare for me. I almost always know how I feel about a movie immediately after watching it for the first time, certainly after watching it for a second time. So what makes this one different? What makes it so unique? Why am I still pondering the complexities and intricacies of the movie? Why am I still debating things in my head weeks after watching it for the first time? And I have done this every single day since I watched it. I cannot contain my enthusiasm and my desire to talk about this movie with other people. So if you have seen it, great. Drop a comment below and we can share in the love. If you haven't, don't worry, I will not spoil anything because I really want to get as many people as possible to watch this incredibly unique, complex film. One of the main things that sets Primer apart from almost any other movie in the genre, and one of the reasons it's so dense and difficult to follow, especially on first watch, is the fact that they don't explain anything to you. There is absolutely zero exposition in this film compared to something like Inception, which a lot of people claim is confusing. I never really thought it was, but Inception explains basically everything to you. There's a ton of exposition in that movie, and I love that movie. I think most of the exposition is necessary, but there is a lot of it in the movie. It's almost like they're directly explaining things to the audience through one of the characters. There is none of that in Primer. There is nothing explained to you. You are just thrown in the middle of these people's lives, and it's almost like you're a fly on the wall listening in to these very real conversations. And that can be quite jarring at first, but it was also very intriguing, at least to me on first watch. I'm like, whoa, they are not telling you anything. You don't even understand a lot of the words that they're using. You don't even really understand what they're trying to make at first, unless you're, a big science nerd or something like that. For us normies, you don't really understand what's going on at the beginning of the movie, but in a way, you're also super intrigued by it. And a big part of that is the fact that this movie feels very real. It's got like a documentary style filmmaking to it. It's very low budget, and it doesn't have a proper beginning that most movies tend to have. It's basically like you are just listening in on a portion of these people's lives, and it feels like they're real people having real conversations and trying to make real discoveries in real time. And a huge reason why it feels that way is that the actors did such a phenomenal job. Shane Carruth and David Sullivan as Aaron and Abe, respectively. Hope I said Carruth's name correctly. He also wrote and directed the movie, so it definitely feels like his baby, and did a phenomenal job. Those two are the two main characters, and you are following them and their interactions and their journey and trials and tribulations throughout the movie. So if they aren't as good as they are in the movie, everything completely falls apart. But because their performances are so phenomenal and feel so real, it adds to and elevates the overall real feeling and immersiveness of the movie as a whole. And I just have to give them so much credit for that. This is like the best possible version of a student film. I don't really know how they could have done a better job with this. So endless amounts of credit to them. If they don't do as good of a job as they did, none of this works. And it's not just the acting. As a creator, Carruth thought of everything. To my knowledge, there is not a single plot hole in this movie, which is a crazy thing to say about a movie that is so intricate and complex. The fact that if you do enough research and talk about it enough, everything will make sense and come together perfectly shows just the amount of thought that this guy put into all of the details of this film. I also love the way certain scenes were shot. If a scene is static, it was meant to be static. If you're supposed to feel chaotic, the scene is shot in a very chaotic way. Everything is done with purpose, and every scene is shot exactly the way they want to convey exactly what they want to convey. Another thing that stands out about Primer is its version of time travel. I don't really think I've seen time travel work like this before in a movie, and it might very well be my favorite version of time travel in a film. It is certainly, from what I can tell, the most realistic. Now, I am not a scientist. I don't really know how time travel could even potentially work in the real world, but as a normie, watching this movie compared to all of these other time travel movies that I have seen, this feels to me like the closest to what time travel would be like if it was ever a real thing. It makes the most sense that this is the way it would work. And that, again, goes to how much thought they put into it. Every minute detail is perfect and so well thought out. And that's just another element that makes the movie feel so visceral and like a documentary. Another big reason this movie has stuck with me so much, aside from the intricacies and complexities of the science and all the little minute details, is how existential it is. This movie poses some very difficult moral questions and has some very deep themes in it. What should the time machine be used for? If you could go back and do something you really wanted to do and then undo it, what would you do? How far is too far? What will happen if you mess with time too much? What can you do and not mess with the timeline too much? What are you willing to do to yourself to keep the timeline in order? Should you tell anyone else about this? And many, many more. There's some very, very difficult questions, and these are things that are discussed and hinted at by the characters throughout the runtime of the movie, and makes it all the more memorable and compelling. And even some less existential but still interesting and fun conversations and questions, such as, how do phones work? If you have two of the same person in the same timeline and they both have the same cell phone with the same cell phone number, what will happen? Will only one of them ring? Will both of them ring? I have no idea. And the characters don't even know either, but it's a very interesting question, very interesting conversation, something that I have never thought of before, but will always be thinking about since I watched this movie. Throw that along with all of the other existential stuff that I am still pondering weeks later. Not everyone is going to love this movie, but at the very least, it is a phenomenal conversation piece. And look, I have made it very clear amongst my circle of movie friends that I am not a fan of overly confusing, trippy, metaphorical films. I really don't like Mulholland Drive. I really don't like The Lighthouse. Stuff like that is not for me, not on my wavelength whatsoever. This is not that. This is a movie that was incredibly well thought out by the creators, is very intricate and complex, but whatever metaphors may be in there are communicated through a very intricate but contained story with perfect internal logic. When it comes to those other types of movies that I mentioned, I often hear from people, oh, you got to watch them multiple times to fully understand and appreciate them. Oh, you got to do all this research and watch all of these explained videos. And I'm just like, I don't want to do that. I don't care. I didn't like this. When it comes to Primer, it's the type of confusing that, in my case, I want to know more about. I want to do some more research. I want to understand all the intricacies. I want to understand all the little details. I want to understand what everything means. The moment I finished that movie, I was like, whoa, this is really cool. I was tracking along with it all the way, but I still have some questions and I want them answered. So I watched explainer videos, I read articles, and it explained everything perfectly. So like I said, it's an incredibly intricate movie that can be very confusing, especially the first time, but when it's all said and done, when it all is laid out for you, it makes perfect sense. So I don't think this is really like those other ones at all. It's not real trippy, but it's one that just really resonated with me and that I wanted to continue to talk about, continue to do research on, and watch over and over. I already fully intend on watching it a third, fourth, fifth time. This is one that I could see myself watching multiple times every year for the rest of my life and pick up on something new every single time. And I want to make something perfectly clear here. I don't think whether or not you like this movie has anything to do with intelligence. I don't think I'm a particularly smart person. I just found this to be very compelling and intriguing, and not everyone is going to. Again, it is very different. It's a very different style of filmmaking. It is very dense. The structure of the movie, especially in the beginning, is very different than anything else, and it is just not going to resonate with everyone, and that is totally fine. I'm going around recommending this movie to as many people as possible because I think that people should watch it. Even if it's not going to be for you, I think you should probably find out, and it's a pretty short movie. It's under an hour and a half, but I am being careful in my recommendations. Again, I'm recommending it to everyone who hasn't seen it, but I also want to add a caveat there and say that I don't know how you're going to feel. This is not going to work for everyone, and I'm not even sure how to predict who it will and won't work for. It's just one of those that you won't know until you try it, and I highly recommend that everyone try it. And because it is such an underseen film, I try to keep this as vague as possible while simultaneously trying to entice as many people as possible who have not seen it to go ahead and watch it. By the way, I'm probably also going to do a full spoiler-filled deep dive analysis breakdown as well because I just can't help myself. I can't guarantee that it's going to be for you, but what I can tell you is that it's an incredibly unique time travel movie with a very unique take on time travel, many twists and turns throughout that completely reframe everything you had seen up until that point, a very different style of filmmaking, a very different plot structure, but incredibly immersive, incredibly realistic, all things considered, incredibly creative, and they put so much thought into all of the details of the movie, and the acting is phenomenal. So it works for me. I'm still not entirely sure how much. I don't think it's one of my favorite movies of all time just yet, but given time, it could certainly get there. This is the most unique experience I have ever had with a movie before, and this is the most fascinated I have ever been with a movie before. I have been thinking about it nonstop since I watched it for the first time several weeks ago and plan on watching it many more times throughout the course of my life. So this is something that I just had to get out there because I am itching to talk about it with more people. So if you have seen this movie, drop a comment below and let's talk about it. If you have not seen it yet, go watch it, then drop a comment and let's talk about it because if nothing else, again, it is a conversation piece and I can guarantee that for sure. So there you have it, guys. Yeah, this movie is special. There is nothing else like it really, and I have never had an experience with a movie both while I was watching it or afterwards before, and I just want to talk about it with as many people as possible. So drop a comment below, either if you've already seen it or after you watch it. If I convinced you to watch it from this video, drop a comment and we'll have a conversation about it. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. Likes are super important for helping me grow my channel and push my videos out to more people. If you want to see more of this kind of stuff, subscribe, hit the notification bell to get notified when I post a video. Stay tuned. I got a lot more cool stuff coming. I will see you soon.